Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And in this video, I'm actually going to be sharing of how I would actually get a job in a different industry. And the reason why I want to share this video is because I got a lot of requests recently from people that are pharmacists that are looking to get into the pharmaceutical industry. And the main problem they face is like switching industries from pharmacy into pharmaceutical industry. So I actually saw a post on LinkedIn, which I'm literally copying right now, but I'm actually going to share with you guys because this is a person that tried to get a role in product management at Microsoft. And I think it's a very applicable thing to like try to get a new career with no experience. And this is going to be a very, very good process that I'm going to actually use if I was in this situation. And also I'm going to recommend for people that are looking to switch industries. So I'm actually going to break this video down into two different parts. First part is going to be about professional researching, which is understanding as much as possible. And the second part is going to be about professional networking, which is a very underrated skill set, which I'm going to talk about in this video. So professional research is the first part you're going to do, is where you're learning as much as possible about the role. And this is a quick little Google search about anything you can find about. For example, I'm going to use medical science liaison because it's kind of like a similar role to get into. And you're going to look up medical science liaison, and you can also learn as much as possible about that. After you finish Google searching, you can also use LinkedIn as a great resource where you can literally look up people that are medical science liaisons. And then your main goal is to actually find people that have similar connections to you, or for example, went to the same school as you, also went to the same job as you. And you can literally just use a template, which I'm going to share with you guys right now, to reach out to them, providing them a custom LinkedIn message. And what you're going to say is, you're going to just say, "Hi, my name is Robert. I'm interested in learning about the medical science liaison role at a certain company like Merck, and would love advice from a fellow St. John's alumni or a fellow CVS alumni, or fill in the blank of place you worked at. Would love to grab 15 minutes to learn about your experience at Merck and see how I can support your career journey." And this is a pretty easy thing to do. You're going to do this a couple of times with each person to show them that you're actually just not trying to follow them. You're actually trying to like get to know them and talk to them for a little bit. And you can use that so many different times. And your main goal is to reach out to 35 connections. In the post I'm actually taking this from, I actually said like 5-10. I think at the point where you're doing personal research, I think 3 to 5 is a good enough number, which allows you to really know if you really want the job and if it actually aligns to your career goals. After that, you're going to review the job role description, which is very important because that means you're going to actually understand what the job is actually looking for. So for medical science liaison, they usually look for people that are good at presenting, good at understanding clinical knowledge, and good at interpersonal skills, so communication. You know, a little bit outgoing. You have to kind of have a certain personality where you're reaching out to people and actually wanting to talk to them. So you're going to highlight those things and look at that when you look at the job descriptions. And you actually don't need to have all the skill sets. I think one thing that most people try to do is try to line up their entire resume in the job description and make sure each of them follow each bullet. And you don't need to do all that. Like, once you know that you have the main skill sets, the interpersonal skills, the presenting skills, being able to present clinical knowledge to someone else, like a medical science liaison, for example, that's pretty much 70% of the job. And then the other 30% you can either learn on the job, or they pretty much will train you. Or if you don't know, like personal things like technical skills, like for example how to use certain systems, once again you pretty much will learn that on the job. So that's one of the main things you want to look for, is look for the overarching 70%, the things that you actually can do and you know you can do well, and then try to highlight that when you talk about your experiences, and also apply for the job once you know you had that 70%. Okay, so now that you did all that time of like talking to people, you're actually going to look at your actual resume or CV, and you're going to find the most relevant experience that you have and put it on the very top. There's something that I see a lot of people do, is that they try to focus on sharing the most recent experiences they've had, which doesn't really work because most people don't understand that your CV and resume, the first page is literally the only page most people read. So if you really need to make sure that your first page is like, this is good enough. So this is what you have to do, is that, like for example, for myself, if I was looking for a medical science liaison role, I'd probably first put on the medical affairs rotation I had, as well as me being a medical writer. Those are kind of the main things I did. And in those, I actually was able to present clinical information, and I actually was talking to like key opinion leaders about like the clinical data that I was presenting on. So those are things I would use to highlight my experiences. And the funny thing is that by those experiences, those were my first few experiences in my rotation cycle. They weren't, and my last experiences are not really as applicable for a medical science liaison role. So my first page will focus on those two roles because those are the ones that I know will actually be very easy for another person to understand how the last experiences were very valuable and reliable compared to medical science liaisons. And the next thing I'm going to do also is you're also going to try to use keywords and make sure you have quantifiable metrics on your CV/resume. So one thing you could do is you can actually look at job descriptions, like I said before, and you're actually going to look for keywords that you keep on seeing. So like pull up like maybe like 4 to 5 job descriptions and look for the certain things they look for in them, and then you try to highlight that in your actual experiences so you actually can make the bullets about similar things to the keywords. And that also makes your CV/resume like very similar to the job description. So first of all, it helps if you try to apply it to a certain system, but even if you're looking at a person would also see that and say, okay, this like really matches up really well. And the next thing you're gonna do is try to find quantifiable metrics. This is kind of hard to do for most people, but one thing I would say is like, try to ask somebody that works at your job or anybody that like works in a similar field what you're doing, and ask them why you're doing it. And also ask like, think about after you figure out what you're doing and why you're doing it, and what are the main like pressures or reasons why you're doing it. Try to think about how you're actually improving the process, because these metrics are actually helping you explain these things to another person of why you're doing it, how is this improving, and shows that you are a person that can actually change and influence a system to drive positive outcomes to things. And most jobs, you're going to probably find yourself in some kind of way quantifying what you do in some way. Even if most jobs don't say they do, there is some metrics that you have to follow. So it's very important that you kind of understand which ones you're doing for your job, so that way in the future you know how you're improving it. And it also shows you on your next job you're looking for now that you're the kind of person that can understand metrics and can actually work around them to actually improve the process that you're working with. So now that we finished professional research, now we're going to get into professional networking, which I think is the funnest part. This is the part where you're actually going to reach out to people in the same role, and you're actually going to look for target companies. So it's kind of similar as professional research, where you're reaching out to people and you're actually talking to them one-on-one. But this time you're actually focusing on people that you know are working at the companies you want to work for and are in the same role. So I would look for MSLs in that specific role and try to talk to them. Now that you have a lot more information, now that you understand what you're doing, and now you have a good CV that you can always just, if they ask you, you can just send to them right there. So now you can really ask them specific questions. So this is where I would actually write down like 10 to 12 questions and actually ask them the ones that you really want to know. So for example, one thing I would ask people a lot of times is like, what is the most challenging thing that you do on a day-to-day basis, and what do you do to resolve it? I think that's a very important question to do, because when you're actually going to look for this job in the future, it's very important that most of the time most people do a similar job and they face the same challenges. So you knowing that will also allow you to find a way to talk about that before the interview even gets to that question of like how you challenge things. And then you can find a way to relate that to how MSL does that in their role. And that just shows a different kind of like interview, because if you're able to actually understand the main challenge that most MSLs face, and you show that you actually know that and you were able to accomplish that in a different way from your previous roles, you're just a leg up over everyone else. So one of the key things you can do after you actually did your professional networking with your target companies is you can actually ask for a referral, which I think is a genius idea, which I never thought of. And the reason why I want to share this video is this part alone is the best part. Where you really just send that person a referral. So like you talk to that person, you had a good conversation, you ask them some questions, they ask questions back. So now you want to ask them for a referral. So I'm going to share you guys a template right now, and I would just say, hey, it was great speaking with you about the MSL role at Merck, for example. Medical science liaison seems like a good fit based on my skills. Would you be willing to write me a referral? No problem if you don't feel comfortable doing so. Here are 2 to 3 points why I'm a great fit for that role. And this is just a genius idea to like have yourself have the referral, and you actually have someone from the company giving you the referral. So now if you actually apply to somewhere, you actually have that person stamping the approval saying that you're actually a good fit, especially the person who's working there for a couple of years. So hopefully at this point you did that and you got the referral and you looked for the job and you actually got the interview. So the next thing you have to do is you have to do a mock interview. And this is the same thing as looking for an interview, but it's a practice interview with hopefully your connections that you talk to or someone that you know is similar to the role. I would probably look for people in this role because they can actually give you advice on what hiring managers usually ask someone in medical science liaison roles. And if it's even better to ask someone that's probably been doing a couple different interviews in industry, so they kind of know like the main questions that most people ask. This is just a great advice also, is that when you learn what questions to expect, you can actually practice those questions a lot better. And when you get to there, you're going to be super relaxed and be able to answer the questions but better than most other competitors that are looking for the same role. Now, at this point, you're also going to probably, after your mock interview, you're also going to spend time to research the company and the interviewer. So you really want to know what the company's core values are. This is very important because when a person asks you questions, if you can relate the core values, it just shows you did your research. And also you should also understand the goals of the company. So most companies have a business strategy or goals they're trying to achieve in the next couple of years. So for example, this company is trying to be one of the next biggest oncology players. You can actually relate to how oncology is a very personal experience to yourself and use that as a way to merge the strategy to your own personal business strategy and professional strategies. And then also you want to look at what the actual interviewer is. So look at the interviewer is maybe like a senior medical science liaison, are they a director? Look at their past history, where they were working previously. So for example, you want to know if the person has been working at different companies. You can ask them about how their role has changed in different companies, or if the person's been working there for a couple of years. You want to ask that person, say for example, how has the company changed in the last couple of years, and what have you noticed, or what do you think is going to be happening in the next couple of years with this company. Then lastly, you just want to pile up like 10 to 12 questions just to ask the person, like, what are things that you want to know about. In my experience, usually you only get time to really ask about like 5 to 6 questions. But I would just have 10 to 12 because if it's like an hour-long interview or like an hour-and-a-half interview, it's better just to have more questions just in case. And I think it's better to have more questions just because you want to make sure that you fill up the time period, and having a lot of questions actually allows you to show your interest in the company and shows you've done your research. But try to be mindful of how much time you actually have. So if it's an hour interview, try to get to that full hour mark. If not, try to go a little bit over, like 5 minutes, maybe max, 10 minutes max. But don't try to go too much over. And that's pretty much it. This is the best advice I would have, or the step-by-step process that I would use to actually get a job in pharmaceutical industry if I was a pharmacist with no prior experience in it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Catch you guys next time. Peace out. Bye.